Hi, everybody. We are back with another Orlando Law Group weekly webinar. We've got Michael Curtin here and Darnell Mahone here. We're going to be talking all about real estate. Okay. Mike, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, then Darnell, we'll get to you as well.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for participating today. My name is Michael Curtin. I am a commercial real estate broker with Hive Commercial here based in Altamont Springs, Florida. Very excited about chatting with you today and kind of give you updates on the real estate world currently.
Excellent. And Darnell?
All right, everybody. I'm Darnell Mahone. I'm with a company called Bella Group Funding, also known as Hive Lending. So we have a nice little collective here. And that's it. Nothing too special.
Yes. You guys are fantastic, though. And what we're gonna be doing today is we've worked up some relevant questions for you guys, and we're gonna start with the main one that everyone's asking, which is how has COVID-19 affected my industry? How has it affected your industry?
Well, I get started. I think it obviously has affected the industry, but it's a little too early to know to what level. So my thought is what I've been doing is you just put your head down and work hard. So I think if you look prior to the pandemic, the market was strong. There's still a lot of investment dollars out there. So what did happen that I know is that people kind of put things on hold. So I do think that there will be activity, and it really depends on what sector you're working in and where you spend your time. So I do think, as I said, it's kind of an odd market to the point where it was so strong prior to this. You know, the investment dollars don't go away, but people want to wait and see what's going to happen, you know, with the lending and, you know, where people spend their investments currently right now.
What about you, Darnell? How has COVID-19 affected the lending side of things?
I feel exactly the same. I feel like the folks that put their head down and keep going, you keep trucking, you keep fighting, you may not be able to do necessarily business as usual. A lot of companies have frozen their operations or put a pause on things. But the folks that have keep pushing, keep trucking, keep visiting with your clients, whoever that may be, stay in front of them as much as you possibly can. Get those trainings in as much as you possibly can. You know, those are the ones who will come out on the other side. You know, we've been through this before. I came into business in 2006, and then we had a major collapse, which I thought was my fault, to be honest with you. But I think that, you know, you kind of make your way through it by staying focused on your goals, your company goals. And that's it. That's what I tell people. Just keep going, keep trucking, find a way to keep moving forward.
Yep. And then of course, so how's it affected your personal? So that's kind of like industry wide. How's it affected your personal business? What are some things you're doing personally, maybe?
As I said before, if you keep your head down, if you work harder, my thought is always you work harder than your competition, right? You're out there, you just don't wait for business to come in, you work hard and you can outwork your competition, and you just can't, you know, things were very, you know, good prior to this. And as I said, if you're sort of get fat and happy and just wait for business to come in, that's not what you do. You just continue to, you know, do more, be out there, be knowledgeable for any of your buyers or sellers. I mean, you have to be knowledgeable. Knowledge is key.
Here's a question that we have in the chat. How have the rates been during COVID-19?
Honestly, they've been pretty good, which is, you know, counterintuitive. You would expect, you know, things to take off in the other direction, but oddly enough, they've been pretty solid, and we can thank the government for that, I'm sure. You know, they've had a hand in keeping things level, you know, keeping people from hitting the panic button. But honestly, they've been pretty good. You know, we're still solid in that regard.
Here's a question for Michael, but also, of course, Darnell as well. What can investors expect as it relates to property values? So what are some things that investors can expect? I know that that you work a lot with investment properties.
Really depends on each investor has their own criteria, right? Whether they're land acquisition, office, they all have their own criteria. So it's interesting to, it goes back to where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your investment? Some investors are looking for, if they're buying a retail strip plaza, they're looking for what do those leases look like? That determines the value of the property. You've got, the relative comps in the area. So each investor, again, has their own criteria, and their investment is made based upon, what they're looking for. So there are certain sectors that, I speak to the retail plazas, there's some unknowns there. Are the tenants going to remain in business? That does devalue some of the properties. Then you have industrial properties where, they're still pretty strong, that was strong before. So I guess you have to identify the criteria of the investor.
Got it. And then let's talk a little bit about trends that you're seeing right now. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing that have come out of this, or even ones that you might have been seeing before that are still going? What are some of the trends in the market that you're seeing?
For me, I'm seeing a real distinct trend, which is people want more information than before. Before, we're kind of sitting back and letting you do your thing, which was okay. You kind of volunteered more information. Well, now you're getting a lot more proactive client base. They want to know a little bit more information. They want to know exit strategy. They want to know, am I going to be okay in the event of? And that is probably a direct result of the situation that we have going on right now. But definitely a standout compared to normal.
Yes. What about you, Mike? Any trends?
I go back to the knowledge. You have to be knowledgeable for whether it's a buyer or seller. The more they know, they're looking for recommendations. They're running their business, so they want to feel like they want to work with someone that's going to guide them, help them make the right decision. Because a lot of them, this is a big investment. It's a big asset for them. So I've always tried to get either side, buyer or seller, to be comfortable with us so that we can give them enough ammunition, enough information to make the right decision. So I've been always focusing on that.
I love that. I love that. Information is power,
Yeah, the education piece is huge. You want to educate, and you want to be there for the long term. You don't want to be a one-stop, not a once and go. You want to be there for the long haul. You want their family members. You want their business partners. You want to build that with every relationship. And so you have to be a solid resource, and education is a big part of that.
I love that. Let's see here. So this kind of goes along with trends, but any kind of predictions that, and of course no one can predict ultimately the future, but I like to make estimations, and any predictions you guys have about where those trends are going to take us?
I see a lot of investors, as I mentioned, looking at the different, they may invested in one type of, I go back to whether it's a retail plaza, or they may switch their investment over to an industrial property, office property. So I think the more we go back to educating them on, making that right decision as far as where to put their dollars, because, and also in my business, in the commercial end of the business, there's a lot of specialists. So some brokers specialize in office, some specialize in land acquisition. I like to be knowledgeable in a little bit everything so that you can, assist your buyers and sellers a lot more.
Very nice. And Darnell, any predictions on where those trends are taking us?
I think it's the same. I think people are going to broaden their horizons in that regard. I honestly think people have looked at industries they may have never considered before.
Sure.
Y'all there? My screen
Yep.
went dark. What the heck?
Oh, we can hear you, Darnell. We can hear you.
Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I think that prediction-wise, I don't know. I'm excited about it. I think there's a lot of opportunity that typically comes out of things of this nature, and there's a lot of ways that we can grow as a community all of us can benefit. But again, it's through knowledge, and it's through sharing that knowledge. And so I think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see a lot more collectives. The Zoom calls are fantastic. You know, it gives you an opportunity to visit with folks way more often than you normally would. So I think that's amazing. So yeah, I don't think that's going to turn back. I think that's going to stay put. And I think I'm going to eat at home more. I think that's a prediction. I don't know. But
I
that's
love
about
that.
it.
I agree, Darnell. You have to adjust the way you do business. And I'm a face-to-face person. It's driving me a little bit crazy till you get in the market, because I'm actually out quite a bit meeting with people. These Zoom calls, you're right, are fantastic because you still interact. It's not your typical conference call where you just hear someone on the other side, but you can actually see. And so you really, I guess, got to adjust to the market now.
Yeah.
So let's see here. We have a question. And this is on the commercial side, but also, of course, on the lending side. Are there sectors that are more desirable? So are there any sectors that are more desirable? I'm sure you get that question a lot, like where to buy, what to buy, where to buy.
So the land development has not really slowed down because, you got multifamily, you got groups that are securing land, and it's a long process of due diligence, right? With that being said, prior to this, the land costs were getting pretty high. Construction costs were high. So that caused, these developments so I think that'll adjust a little bit to the favor of the developers, because deals were pretty tight. So that sector is not going to be, I don't think, is affected right away. You got the industrial, I think, which has been strong before. So I think there might be a little bit of adjustment as far as getting the numbers where they should be, so I don't think it's going to be a fire sale. I actually do get some investors right now that are contacting thinking, oh, I got $500,000. You think I can, get it for 50% off? No, that's not the case. Again, because we had such a strong market. So again, different investors, different criteria. So Darnell, you mentioned before, I think they are going to be flexible and looking into different opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, oddly enough, I think the restaurant industry will recover, and I think that it's going to be something new and different when it does come back full speed, because it's forced creativity. A lot of restaurateurs are artists in their mind. You know what I mean? They want to create and they want to do these things. I really think that this is a new platform for them to figure out, how can I provide this service in a way that will get people excited about it. I really think that it's going to pick back up. I think, the delivery element and the outdoor eating element, all of those things are going to add a new dynamic to restaurants. And I think it's going to pick back up. I think it's going to be strong.
I like that.
Totally
I like
agree.
that. So here's a question. How can landlords help their tenants through these challenging times? So how can, it's been tough. What are some ways that those landlords can help?
Got a nice one for this. Okay, so I have a partner that I work with who does, they do teledoc setups for property managers. So for example, if you own a complex or what have you, they provide a teledoc service to the entire community. So those folks that weren't able to get to a doctor's office or weren't able to or weren't comfortable with that, they provide them an access to two doctors for a minimal fee. For example, the community, if they do the entire community, they'll give this service for like $9 a month. And they can roll it into their lease payment, or they can keep it separate. The community can keep it entirely separate. So that was one of the things that popped up pretty early, because they wanted to ensure that people were taking care of themselves, probably end result meaning they can pay their rent, but still they wanted to make sure that they could take care of themselves. So I was pretty impressed with that, because I think I don't think everybody realized how many people don't actually have access to medical professionals. So I was pretty impressed with that.
What about you, Mike?
It's interesting because I'm going through this right now. I've got, to me, the top word is communication. You have to communicate the landlord. The landlord's he wants to keep you in business. He wants to keep you as a tenant. Some tenants, if they have problems right now, it's everyone, right? So you have to communicate, because it's not like, so it's that relationship you build with the landlord and the tenant, that you just keep the communication, and they'll work it out. I've got some landlords currently, they're forgiving half the rent, or they're putting them on a plan to get them back in place. And some are not even, some are taking advantage, some are not even communicating, which, so you've got the landlord, that's an asset that is based on their tenants. It's based upon their leases and the longevity of the leases and the quality of the tenants. So again, it's communication. And I do think that, they'll recover, but people that kind of were teetering before, unfortunately, may not make it through. But, if it's a solid location, then it'll be replaced by someone else. But you want to see everyone succeed. So,
absolutely.
But again, and with just communication.
It's nailing that communication can sometimes be the challenge, Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about some.
Yeah, you're right.
pitfalls.
Well, there sometimes if you're having it.
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Oh,
no, I was wrapping up, guys.
Oh, so basically what we want to
transition
into now is are some pitfalls. I always talk about pitfalls in industries, preventing people from entering those pitfalls. What are some of the pitfalls that you guys have seen?
On my end, it's just, and it's starting to clear out a little bit now. In the beginning, everyone's putting the brakes, and you can't really blame them because you don't know. You can't make decisions until you know how this is going to play out. And I think slowly but again, you've got to be prepared to be knowledgeable, again, as I said before, to get that information to your client, even if it's helping him, it's not directly related to your, to whether you're trying to sell on the property or, you want to provide him with that information that's going to help them. Because that's the only pitfall I see, is that there's so many unknowns, they really, not in a position to make a decision. And I'll go defer to you, Darnell, because a lot of my clients are wondering on the lending side. Some of the lending got put on hold, and the banks, are on hold. You get that a lot now, or
right?
where you guys with that?
Yeah, a lot of them are starting to open back up. So a couple of the dates we received were the 15th and the 30th of this month. So a lot of things are coming back open, but they're coming back open restricted or reduced in terms of what they're willing to offer. The criteria has changed. So with that being said, one of the pitfalls that I come across is documentation. A lot of business owners are busy running the business. They're not necessarily on top of their documentation. And so that has been vital for what I do. I'm a lot of times scrambling for documents. And so I always encourage them, hey, document as much as you possibly can. Let us know what's what. Be upfront with everything, the pluses and the minuses, the good and the bad. Let us know. Because we hate for surprises to pop up. And you hate for a loan to get to a certain point and then have to hold up, because we don't know what changes are going to come. Our industry changes daily, so we don't know what's going to happen. So if we're putting something together for you and we're telling you, hey, we need to get this going, we need X, Y, and Z. A lot of it is to proceed to the closing in timely fashion, but a lot of it is also the simple fact that we don't know if a change is going to come during the middle of this process. We want to get it done because this is what I'm giving you. This is what I'm bringing to the table. I want to be able to guarantee that. I want to be able to close you on that. And when this happened, a lot of the end of the line investors were like, nope, they didn't care if you were approved and ready to go or 2 days from closing. They pumped the brakes, and that was that. So we have people literally in limbo, waiting for, is this going to come back, or am I just dead in the water? And so then they're scrambling. And so the key for me is documentation. Get everything as early as possible to avoid those end of the line pitfalls.
Awesome. And we have a question in the chat.
So
So
you're on point, Darnell. I have a question for you.
go for it,
Can
Michael.
you hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you now.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. My screen went dark for a minute there. Darnell, to your point is that when things, because I have that situation now where things are on hold, and I agree with you. I have some buyers that are used to working with the bank that they've been comfortable with for years. And my question is, if that bank it has them on hold, I would think it benefits them to reach out and cast the net to other lending institutions. So what are your thoughts with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I get it. Your bank will still be your bank, but if there's an opportunity to finish up what you need to finish up, then you have to take that opportunity to look into it. I mean, it's just the financially sound way to move forward. You can't always wait. But again, that bank will still be your bank. You're not literally betraying them, so I would say, yeah, take a look, see what else you can get done. And if it's comparable and if it works, if it meets your goals and your needs, then go for it. You know what I mean? And a lot of times we can work with those banks and say, hey, listen, we're working with this gentleman. We want to deal with you directly, keep you in the loop as to how this is proceeding, as long as, they're mindful of what you're trying to do and not looking to undercut. We're trying to help the same client. This is a mutual client. So yeah, I think they should go for it, to tell you the truth.
So we had the question of was the lending on hold due to the amount of money in the CARES Act that the banks were trying to deal with?
No. Yes and no. I take that back. So for depository banks like a Bank of America and Chase, I would say yes. Mm-hmm. But for what we do, not necessarily. We use a lot of private money. We use a lot of quote unquote commercial lending banks. So it's a little bit different. I think the bigger banks, the mainstream banks, I think they definitely had that issue, and some of the smaller ones probably too. But that was not necessarily an issue for me. My folks were literally running for the hills. Like they just didn't know what was coming, what was happening, and they really didn't want to wait to be caught in the barrel to find out. They wanted to secure their position and stand back and take a look and then say, okay, we move forward or we're totally out. I've had some that froze operations and I've had some that literally shut the door. We're done. So, it crossed all lines, but I don't think the CARES Act was a big factor in what I do.
And then so here's a kind of, we're working towards our conclusion, guys, here. So how can commercial real estate brokers be a successful resource in the current market and professionally advise their buyers and sellers? Because it's really about where do we go from here? How can we be the most successful? So Mike, what would you say on that?
I say you really have to know the marketplace. You really have to know it. So if it's on the buyer side or seller side, they're relying on you to provide them information. You have to know the property. And one thing that I always apply is that I whether you're on the buyer or seller side, would I make this investment? Would I make this investment personally? Would I, if I'm a seller, would I sell this property at this rate? So to me, I always use it because then that's going to be a good decision based upon what you provide your client on either side. And it's to me, that's real important. A good deal is when the buyer and seller are both happy. If anyone feels like they're jilted, you may have issues with getting it closed. It's just, I always have that mindset, and that's always seemed to work.
What about you, Darnell? What's a win in your book? What's the best win in your book?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, it's pretty straightforward for what we do, man. We want everybody to win. We want everyone to be happy, because we're trying to build, a legacy, if you will. We're trying to build longevity in the industry. I'm not going to do anything else. This is it for me, so the end result is everything. And so whatever that takes, whatever form that takes, we want everybody to be good, and that's what we shoot for. So dealing with, I call both sides all the time. I have no issue picking up the phone. Like a lot of people have that knee-jerk reaction to rejection. I don't know that I have that. So I don't know why, but that's a whole nother call. But
part two.
I don't have the verse to. I can get on the phone and make those calls and solve those problems. I genuinely feel like problem solver should be on our resume.
Awesome.
Because that's what we do. We do whatever it takes to solve the problem, to get these deals done. There's no straightforward deals anymore. I mean, they're far and few between. Everything requires a little bit of creativity, a little bit of flexibility. And I think that's what we're doing.
Guys, is there anything we've left off our list here? Anything that we need our audience to know moving forward? Anything that we've left off here? We've talked a lot about the unknowns. We've talked a lot about, what can investors expect like from their properties. We've talked about, how can landlords help their tenants during these times? Is there anything else specific that you guys want to communicate, or, because we're getting ready to wrap up here?
I would just like to say, everyone keep your head down, keep focused, and you'll get through it and you'll succeed. I mean, that's, you just can't, you got to keep moving forward. That's what I've always done. So.
Excellent. And Darnell?
Yeah, I feel the same. I think, if you look at historically, yeah, I feel the same. Historically, if you look at catastrophes when they happen and things like this, billionaires are made from these environments. And so keep going. You know what I mean? That's the key. You can't lay down and get washed over. You have to keep fighting. In whatever form that takes for you, keep going. Keep your dream alive, because no one else is going to do that for you.
Excellent, guys. Well, I want to thank you both for coming on here and doing our weekly webinar. We'll have to have you back. We're going to be doing these every Tuesday, so there's going to be plenty of opportunities to do a part 2 with you guys. What I want to do now is just tell the audience where they can find you, what business you work for, remind them again, and where they can find you on social media.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the call today, you hosting the call. And again, my name is Michael Curtin. I'm with Hive Commercial Realty. And you can find us online at hivecommercialrealty.com. And I look forward to chatting.
Perfect. And Darnell?
Okay, and I'm Darnell Mahone. Darnell Mahone with Hive Lending. And also Bella Group Funding. You can find us at either one, hivelending.com or bellagroupfunding.com. And we're here to help. Give us a call.
Awesome. And of course, I'm Steve with Orlando Law Group. You can check us out on Facebook. We're making posts every single day. And we'll see you guys next week for the next Tuesday webinar. Thanks so much.